Hello, and welcome back to History Tweaks for another alternate history scenario. This one is a continuation to the video previously uploaded on what if the rebels succeeded in 1857. Now, before I start off with the scenario, I wanted to address something because I think it would be very unfair on you, my subscribers and viewers, if I didn't address the fact that my last video was 5 months back. And even though I didn't want to give excuses, I just wanted to explain my side of things. So, because 5 months is a long time for a content channel not to produce something. Now, in these past 5 months, I have joined an internship in a different city. So, I've shifted cities and I have, for the first time in my life, started working in a 9 to 5 setting. So, it has been hard balancing the channel and my other sort of commitments as well as 9 to 5 job. And yeah, it has taken me the better part of 5 months to figure everything out. And I just wanted to thank all of you for staying with me, for continuing to sort of wait almost, and for your encouraging comments because I do realize it's a community of 218 people, and without any engagement from my side over 5 months, it would have been very easy for all of you to just lose hope and leave. But you didn't, and I'm thankful for that. Also, I will not promise it will get more regular or that I will upload every week or something like that because I don't know whether I can keep it because I am graduating college this year, in fact, in the next month. So I'll have a lot to figure out in life, job, masters, staying in the country, going abroad, working, choosing where to work, etc. So I can't promise to be regular or have a upload schedule, but know this that what I'm doing with this channel is my passion because it literally combines everything that I like to do: history, videos, and literature. So, yeah, so I love doing this and know that however irregular it might get, I will never give it up. And I do thank you all for all the encouragement. And I will continue doing this. So, without further ado, and before I start emotionally rambling, let's get on with the video. So this is where we ended last time. The rebels have managed to come together and drive the British out of most of North India. The Treaty of Pune is officiated in 1862, and it is decided that British shall renounce their control over most of the occupied regions of the rebels. The British realms were to retreat south of the Mahanadi in the Sirkars, while part of South Bengal and Calcutta still remained in British hands. In the west, the frontiers were demarcated by the Western Ghats, where the Konkan regions were kept by the British, and the southern frontier extended to Kolhapur. Hyderabad was to act as a buffer in the Deccan, and neither party was allowed to station troops 100 miles from the Hyderabad Central Province border. All subsidiary alliances with any kingdom north of the British zone of control, as decided, were to be scrapped, and alliances with Nepal also had to be renounced. Additionally, people who took part in the revolt, even in the British zone of control, were to be pardoned and no reparations were to be made. However, this final clause could not be enforced in any way. So let's continue from there. After signing the peace treaty in 1862, East India Company is dissolved and the British Crown takes direct control of the remainder of the British lands. The lands are divided into Bombay Konkan, Madras, and Calcutta Presidency. In the rebel-occupied lands, nominal suzerainty of Mughal emperor is accepted by everyone except for the Kingdom of Afghanistan, which is then tied to the states by a treaty. But the Mughals are granted direct control only over areas of Delhi, Meerut, and surrounding lands. The Sikh Empire conquers the areas of six suffragette states, including Patiala, as well as Kashmir is puppeted by them. Balochistan is given sovereignty, and Sindh is joined with Multan and put under the rules of the Chopras. The Nawabate of Awadh is reinstated under Wajid Ali Shah, while the Peshwa's dominions are established in Pune, Berar, and parts of the central provinces. The dominions of Holkars, Sindhyas, and Jhansi are greatly increased, and they all internally affirm their support to Peshwa Nana Sahib. Baroda is expanded a little, and Kathiawar and Gujarat are put under Peshwa suzerainty as well. In Rajasthan, the Rajputana Union is established, with the Rathors at its head. In Bihar and Purvanchal, the Nawabate of Buxar is inaugurated, while the Nawab of Bengal is reinstated and the Burma region is also put under Bengal. The northeast is put under the control of the Ahoms as the Kingdom of Assam. Solidarity in the north among these various states is ensured by the creation of an imperial darbar in Delhi, where all heads of state meet regularly. The wave of modernization started during the rebellion in the army also continues in the individual armies of the constituent states, as well as in the Hindustani Azad Fauj, which is controlled by the Mughals. The British in the south, on the other hand, with the loss of lucrative ports at Surat and Karachi, as well as Bombay and Calcutta being threatened by the close presence of the Indian states, expand the ports at Kochi and Vishakhapatnam greatly. They also impose less overbearing policies in the army and on the other princely states still under their control to ensure their loyalty. In the north, trade infrastructure is developed in form of a merchant navy by the Marathas operating out of Surat and by the Bengal Sultanate. Among the other powers, land trade is restarted and strengthened. The Grand Trunk Road is expanded between Oudh and Bengal to facilitate further land trade. However, the presence of British just south of Deccan also means that, though reluctantly, the powers of the Confederacy in Hindustan are forced to modernize and partly industrialize. But the fact remains that there's only nominal central authority means that the investment into modernization is varied. Places occupied from direct British rule like Bengal, Central Provinces, and Berar have a little head start in terms of the need for industrialization. For instance, even though Calcutta is still in British hands, most of the production heartland growing jute, silk, and cotton in Oudh is in the hands of the Hindustan Confederacy. And due to the abstinence from trading with the British, the kingdoms need to find an effective way to manage these resources so as to keep the farmers and zamindars cultivating these crops from growing discontent due to wastage. In the first few years, this excess production is managed by exporting cotton to the European nations as well as United States, where there's a spike in demand because of the embargo from Confederate states. The cotton from Hindustan is exported through Surat as well as newly formed ports at Chittagong. But with the end of the American Civil War as well as plummeting demand, the Indian states are forced to find ways to cater for the production. And hence, with technical support from the French, cotton mills are set up in Durgapur, Asansol, and Kulna. Similarly, manufactories for jute are set up around Dhaka. In the following years, steel plants are also opened in Buxar, utilizing iron and coal extracted from the mines in Jharkhand and Chhattisgarh. On the other hand, Oudh starts investing in developing a strengthened road network to transport steel from the steel mills in Bihar to the weapon manufacturers in Punjab and central provinces, and cotton from the heartland to the mills in Asansol, Surat, and Baroda. All the while, the British mills in Calcutta and Bombay suffer because of lack of supply of cotton from India. This causes the British East India Company trying to ambush the border fortresses in Bengal in order to disrupt the road networks. This sparks intense competition between the two halves of the subcontinent. The British start planting cotton in the Deccan regions and rapidly building up the rail infrastructure to export cotton cheaply in order to outcompete the Hindustani production. This motivates the Nawab of Awadh to start investing into expanding the railway line already built before the rebellion from Delhi in order to connect it to the section of the railway completed from Calcutta to Rajmahal. By 1870, the railway from Delhi to Bardhaman is completed and a new one to Chittagong is started. Meanwhile, with the production of cotton in America coming back up, the demand for Indian cotton goes down. This prompts further growth of cotton mills by enterprising businessmen in Bengal as well as Gujarat. Along with that, the Peshwa also starts investing in a railway connection from Surat to Delhi. Simultaneous railway development also starts nominally in Sindh, Punjab, and Rajputana. With this development of infrastructure, production and transportation of raw cotton in Hindustan, as well as textiles from the mills, grow. British India falls behind as raw material production takes time to catch on. As the tensions rise, Nawab of Bengal plans a preemptive strike on Calcutta. May 1872. The Bengal army marches into Calcutta region and the city soon falls. The British try to march forces up through Sarkars, but throughout the years it has been heavily fortified. Out in the sea, newly built Bengal Navy patrols the river and is supported by the French Indochina Fleet. And hence, with the public viewing the city as more trouble than benefit, the British soon sign the Treaty of Calcutta and Calcutta is given over to Bengal. With international trade opening up through the port of Calcutta, Bengal in the following years develops a robust industrial infrastructure and becomes a manufacturing powerhouse in the Confederacy. With that, the industrialists start growing in power and soon start taking part in the deliberations of the governing council. On the other hand, in the Confederacy in general, the solidarity maintained during the last 2 decades starts to wither. The death or retirement of important rebel leaders mean that individual states start looking inwards, and even though the Darbar keeps assembling, the focus of the states shift. They do maintain trade and infrastructure sharing, but then their general focus and policies shifts towards their individual interests. As the following years pass by, the friction between the Rajput states grow. The age-long rivalry between Mewar and Marwar starts erupting. There are a series of skirmishes between the two, while Jaipur starts having border tensions with Kota. General resentment builds up in the Rajputana against the Rathore supremacy in the governing council. Soon, this devolves into a full-blown conflict in Rajputana. The rest of the members of the Confederacy of Hindustan do not see this as their concern, as the conflict does not directly threaten to involve the British. The Rajputana War hence causes the Rathors to lose their position of supremacy, and Rajputana is federalized, and the governing council is rid of the Rathor supremacy. Over in Afghanistan, turmoil breaks out, and the Sikh Empire takes advantage of this turmoil and attacks and captures Ghazni and Jalalabad. Over in the east, Bengal and Assam also conclude an internal alliance as the aggression from the border states of Myanmar, supported by the British, grows. By 1890, with the death of the successor of Bahadur Shah Zafar, the Marathas refused to accept suzerainty even nominally, and one by one, all the constituent members drop out of the Delhi Darbar. And hence, the Nawabate of Buxar joins the Eastern Union with Bengal and Assam for their protection. In their selfish moves, the Indian princes play directly into the hands of the British, waiting for an opportunity. They take the opportunity and involve in the succession crisis of the Kingdom of Sindh. By 1895, the British bring Sindh into a subsidiary alliance with them. Soon afterwards, the Kingdom of Balochistan is also taken into British premiership with a subsidiary alliance. The British then involved in the Afghan Civil War, and by 1898, Afghanistan is puppeted by the British too. The British also pushed harder in the colonization of Africa and managed to secure larger portions of it. The scramble for Africa coming to an end, the British involved themselves in the succession crisis in Punjab, hence instigating the Second Anglo-Sikh War. And even though the Sikhs are able to fight back much better with the modernization, the British still managed to capture Bawalpur, Multan, Dera Ghazi Khan, Kandahar, Jalalabad, and the Sisat states. By 1903, the British managed to bring Delhi under their subsidiary alliance. With Delhi captured and the Indian princes seemingly having learned nothing from their struggles, the British try to attack the Maratha Confederacy. But here they are thwarted and are unable to gain any significant foothold. By 1907, when Awadh starts facing internal crisis, the British take the opportunity to attack and force the Nawabs of Awadh into a subsidiary alliance. In the meantime, in the southern provinces of British occupation, especially in Bombay and Madras Presidency, a native political movement for self-rule starts to develop under an organization called the Indian National Congress, founded in the Bombay Presidency. Under leaders such as Bal Gangadhar Tilak, Periyar, Dadabhai Naoroji, and Ramaswamy, the movement gains ground. Having gained earth and eager to reclaim their Indian empire, on the pretext of border tensions, they attack Bihar as well as the states in modern-day Chhattisgarh. The Bengal army mobilizes to support Bihar, but then is unable to stop British from capturing Buxar. Nawab of Buxar flees to Bengal and Bihar is captured. Over in Gujarat, the British instigate the local Gujarati princes as well as Baroda into open revolt against the Marathas. Always sympathetic to the British, Baroda agrees and hence starts the Anglo-Maratha Gujarat War. Taken completely by surprise, the Marathas lose Gujarat as well as parts of the central provinces. But soon they are able to stabilize their front lines, and with stalemate growing, a treaty is concluded, and the Marathas lose Gujarat as well as the regions in Bundelkhand, which are brought into subsidiary alliance with the British. Over in Punjab, after the Second Anglo-Sikh War, the state is weakened, and with the death of their leader and the governing council in turmoil, the British intervene again, and this time bring both Punjab and Kashmir into a subsidiary alliance with them. And with that, the reality of British being able to recapture all of India sets in, and hence the remaining states of Bengal, Assam, Marathas, and Rajputana start investing heavily again into their militaries and supporting each other. But it is too late to save the rest of the states. By 1909, with capture of Oudh and Sindh directly under British control by the doctrine of lapse and British interference in Punjab and Afghanistan, the Congress movement started in the south spreads into Sindh and United Provinces. Under leaders such as Motilal Nehru, the former advisor to the Delhi Emperor, Lala Lajpat Rai from Punjab, and Begum of Lucknow, the movement gains popular support among the common public. Over in the Nawabate of Bengal, exploitative policies of the industrialists and the zamindars caused political reform movement to start growing in form of pro-democracy parties like the Revolutionary Party under Chittaranjan Das. The movement swells with popular support and leaders of the Congress Party start corresponding with the leaders of the Revolutionary Party. As the movement grows, the governing council is forced to make concessions, and by 1912, the governing council allows seats to land-holding middle-class delegates. As the tensions in Europe grows and boils into the First World War, the neutrality debate in the UK is different in this timeline because the focus on reconquering India shifts the favor towards the neutrality factions. This gives Germany an easier conquest of Belgium without much opposition from the British. But the UK does join in on the side of Entente when Germany sieges Paris and the French are forced to evacuate to Bordeaux. With the British joining in, the Germans are halted just outside Paris, but the head start Germany has means that UK puts large pressures on the Indian dominions to supply their war effort. This causes a mass uprising in the British held parts of the country. By 1916, the Maratha Party gains popularity in the Maratha Confederacy. It is a centrist party which advocates for increased modernization, liberalization, and reform in the society. Over in Europe, the head start that Germany has means that the Russians are forced into an early peace in 1970, which means that the conditions that gave rise to the communist revolution does not exist. But the Tsar is forced to make massive concessions and a socialist government takes power. Russia also loses a lot of territory in Poland and Baltics, which are subsequently returned to them. On the other hand, Britain being less exhausted from war means that they are able to push back the Germans, and as they push back to the Ardennes, the German Democrats stage an uprising and the German Empire sues for peace. But the fact that Germany has done much better in the war overall means that the Germans are able to negotiate and receive a milder peace. With the Americans not being involved, the ideas of self determination are also not involved in the peace process. Over in India, the independence movement under the Congress gains new height as the calls for total independence grows louder. But the British crack down heavily on the protesters. Over in Bengal in 1919, a new constitution is adopted based on a model of American, French, and Irish constitutions. A democratically elected parliament is inaugurated, and the Nawab is maintained as the nominal head of state. As the British crackdowns against the independence politicians grow, they are given safe refuge in the Nawabate of Bengal. Over in the Maratha Confederacy, as the Maratha party grows in popularities, the various clan chiefs are forced to introduce elected assemblies. The Maratha Confederacy is further federalized too. With a democratic assembly in Bengal, the Republican movement spreads into Assam too, and by 1921, elected assemblies similar to Bengal are inaugurated. As the leaders of the independence movement spend their time in Bengal, they get inspired by the assemblies and the systems of Bengal. They start shaping their post independence political ideas based on the Bengal model. By 1925, a massive popular movement rages through the British lands, and as the British Indian Army and Navy show signs of rebellion, the British pass the Government of India Act in 1930, which gives dominion status to the country. But the act is rejected by the independence movement leaders due to its insufficiency. By 1940, plagued by popular movement and crippling of the governing and industrial infrastructure in the British lands of India, the British form up a transfer of power agreement to take in effect in 1942. An Constituent Assembly in British India assembles. The leaders approach the Bengal government for advisors. On the 10th of May 1942, Indian Union gains its independence. As the princely state integration comes through, the smaller state accedes to the Indian Union, while Hyderabad and Punjab hold out and demand independence. As a compromise, an idea of autonomous princely province is proposed which will act as a general state in the Union, but with a hereditary governor who is a figurehead. The compromises in this timeline is different from ours because during the brief period of the Hindustan Confederacy, princely states, especially Punjab, has seen a period of self-sufficiency and independence. And they also have a greater prestige for being involved in the independence movement and the rebellion. And hence, any heavy handed dealing with them might cause rebellion even in the rest of the Indian states. And hence, they are allowed to maintain their nominal figureheads as hereditary governors. With the Constituent Assembly still working, the bicameral legislature in the center is expanded to include a Chamber of Princes, which would act as a recommendatory body on the matters of culture, modernization, and reform in society. And it would involve representatives of the princely states, and in future would typically lead on the conservative edge and play a mild role in state reorganization and elections of presidents of the Union. With these compromises, and with a precedent of an independent country like Pakistan not existing, Punjab and Hyderabad join in by 1945. Around the same time, the negotiations with Marathas and Bengal begin to agree on the term of accession. Bengal quickly agrees. The Maratha Confederacy, on the other hand, demands autonomy on international civil laws within the Confederacy. The individual clans are integrated as princely provinces, and the Confederacy is integrated as a singular autonomous zone, and the same is done in Rajputana as well. And hence, the subcontinent is united once more as Hindustan, albeit with a highly federalized structure and unique quasi hereditary provincial governors in some of the princely provinces. The autonomous regions of Bengal, Marathas, and Rajputana become unique legislative instances. They form regions where various aspects of administration are tested out and developed. For instance, the province of Bengal and the Bengal legislature, with its center left leanings, forms a model for a larger Indian democracy. Many acts are piloted in Bengal before being adopted nationally. Bills like Abolition of Zamindari Act, on the other hand, are more nuanced and compromised due to the influence of the Chamber of Princes as well as the Maratha provinces. With the autonomy in various provinces, the spectrum of political ideologies are also varied, from majorly center left parties in Bengal to the reformist parties in Maharashtra and conservative parties in Hyderabad and Rajasthan. These ideologies constantly influence and shape the national politics. Even dichotomy in the Houses of Parliament and the Chamber of Princes, being centrist to liberal and centrist to conservative respectively, shapes the national political discourse. And even though the powers of the princes are very nominal, they often form a counter voice to the rapidly changing forces in Parliament. This dichotomy may be balancing in a nuancing force, deterring from hyper socialistic reforms, but on the other hand, may also cause hindrance in some reforms and initiatives by Parliament at other times. And hence the country develops a very unique political system with the Chamber of Princes and the House of Parliament sometimes collaborating but sometimes disagreeing with each other. The spectrum parties in the different autonomous provinces being eye to eye on some issues while divergent on others. And these factors of varied political players and stakeholders in the politics of the nation means that the country continues on a more or less centrist path. This prevents any swings to hyper-socialism or hyper-nationalism or hyper-conservatism or hyper-liberalism at any point of time because of the nuanced effects of the varied political environment. And that is why the nation of Hindustan becomes a haven for centrism and a model state to represent the strengths of political discourse, compromise, and mutual understanding and respect in political circles. And that is where I'll end this scenario for now. But I would also like to say that the mutual discourse and the respect in political circles that I talked about needn't come only through a unique political system in some alternate world. it can also come in this world, in today's India. India's democracy is unique in its own ways, and we all hope that it continues to remain so forever. Thank you and have a great day. Also, don't forget to like and share to support this growing empire of ours and subscribe to join its administrative ranks.